In the winter of 1944, an SS Panzergrenadier officer named Werner Kortenhardt sat down and wrote a single sentence in his field journal. He had just survived contact with American paratroopers outside Balstilia. The sentence read, "We were not fighting men. We were fighting something that had decided not to die." He was not being poetic. He was being precise. Kortenhaus had served on the Eastern Front. He had fought Soviet troops at Kurik, where the ground itself seemed to bleed. He had held lines against British soldiers who attacked with mechanical, almost Bechteratical stubbornness. He had seen things that qualified men as have seen everything. And yet, somewhere in the frozen Adernents, something happened to him that none of those experiences had prepared him for. He encountered the 101st Airborne Division of the United States Army, and it changed what he believed was possible for human beings to endure. This is not a story about heroism the way Hollywood tells it. Hollywood gives you slow-motion flags and swelling orchestras. This is something quieter and more disturbing. This is the account of what happened when the most elite ground assault force in the Wehrmacht, the SS, came into disdained contact with American paratroopers, who had no orders to retreat, no obvious way to survive, and no apparent awareness that what they were doing was supposed to be impossible.
Move it, ladies! You call that running?
The story begins not with glory. It begins with cold, with hunger, with paratroopers jumping into darkness over German-occupied Europe. The 101st Airborne Division was activated in August of 1942 at Camp Clasbrate, Louisiana. The Army took young Americans from farms in Iowa, factories in Detroit, fishing towns in Maine, and steel mill towns in Pennsylvania, and it broke them down to nothing. The Army aims to build soldiers who can maintain discipline. That the Army aims to build soldiers and move forward even in the most chaotic seditions.
We're gonna do it. It's on the bait. Great. Oh, it's great.
General William Lee, the father of American airborne forces, described what he was looking for in these terms. Give me men who understand that the word surrounded simply need the enemy is now in range in all directions. That sounds like a joke. It was not a joke. It was an operational philosophy.
To understand what happened at Bastogne, you need to understand what the Germans thought they were doing. On December 16th, the Wehrmacht launched a plan to punch through the thinly held Arronex, drive to Antwerp, split the Allied armies, and force a negotiated peace. It depended on speed, on shock, in moving faster than the Allies could react.
In the first 48 hours, it almost worked. The German assault hit American lines with devastating force. Entire units were overrun or captured. The fog of war was total. And into this chaos, the Allied command made the decision that would define the battle. They called the Screaming Eagles.
The 101st Airborne was resting in Reims, France, refitting after brutal fighting in the Netherlands. They needed rest. They needed resupply. They needed time. They got about 18 hours. On December 17th, the order came down. The 101st was going to Bastogne. The one groom, helmets are snatched up. Packs are... Most had no winter gear. Temperatures were already dropping below freezing. Many rode in open trucks in standard field uniforms. They drove through the night toward the sound of a battle already going badly.
Tanks! The SS was coming! It was over!
Passing retreating soldiers who shouted warnings. The Germans had tanks. The SS was coming. It was over. The screaming eagles kept driving toward the guns. The perimeter was roughly 50 kilometers in circumference. Around 15,000 men, many support troops, not frontline infantry. Limited ammunition, almost no artillery shells, no winter clothing. The temperature dropped to minus 20 degrees Celsius. The forest floor froze hard as concrete. The Germans surrounding them had 5 divisions, armor, artillery, superior numbers in every category.
On December 22nd, German officers under a white plaid delivered a formal ultimatum: surrender Bastogne immediately or face complete annihilation. The acting American commander, Brigadier General Anthony McColloty, read it. His staff watched him, waiting.
He said, "Nuts. Nuts." His staff asked what to put in the written reply. He said, "Use that, just that." The formal reply read, to the German commander, "Nuts," the American commander. When asked what the word meant, the American officer told them it was the equivalent of "go to hell." A young SS officer, wounded in an engagement where his unit lost 2 tanks and still failed to take a position held by roughly 80 men, wrote home from a field hospital. They are not fighting from a foxhole. They are fighting from inside themselves. There is something wrong with them. Something that makes them more dangerous than any soldier I have encountered. Sergeant Leighton Black, a 22-year-old combat medic from Harlan County, Kentucky. Black's carbine, kicked back, held the entrance to his aid station for 40 minutes against direct SS assault, protecting wounded men who couldn't be moved. When reinforcements arrived, they found 3 dead German soldiers at the threshold, and Black still standing. A bayonet wound in his arm he hadn't even reported. Private Vernon Hober, a machine gunner from Columbus, Ohio, faced a German tank on Christmas Eve. His gun couldn't penetrate armor. The heavy metallic treads of the tank crunched through the snow. He stayed anyway, firing on the infantry behind it, buying time for a bazooka team. The tank's gun fired twice in his direction. He was thrown several meters. Staggering to his Dermond, disoriented but the last few feet, his hands fumbling in the snow to find the hot weapon. He got up, found his gun, and kept firing. A senior SS staff officer, Otto Dincy, later wrote a tactical assessment focused not on American firepower, but on what he called psychologische Immobilitat, Graham's psychological immobility. He wrote that American paratroopers seemed to treat abandoning a position as personal failure rather than tactical option, creating a defensive cohesion nearly impossible to break by conventional assault. 5 SS divisions launched a coordinated assault in the pre-dawn hours. German tanks briefly broke into the town before being stopped. The fighting was room to room, building to building, American soldiers who hadn't been relieved in 8 days fighting with rifles, grenades, and in several cases, entrenching tools. A German tank commander wrote in his logbook that afternoon, "We gained 300 meters this morning. We lost 47 men taking them." The Americans recaptured the ground by nightfall. "I have no words for what these men are," he wrote. An SS company commander who had fought at Kharkov wrote, "In 12 months of combat on the Eastern Front, I never encountered troops who made me question whether we could win. After Balstein, I questioned it every day." A German artillery officer later wrote that on the Eastern Front they had a phrase, "Amerikanisch verteidigt," defended like an American, for a position held past the point of rational military silence. It was not meant as a compliment. By the time he came home from the Ardennes, he was no longer certain it wasn't one.
I'm not pillared, the understereotyze is beyond self, every ben decision. And when name two of decisions, to beans and indications. And there you see a moft.
Werner Kortenhaust survived the war, was held prisoner for 18 months, and later wrote a memoir. The chapter on Basteil is nearly 3 times the length of any other. The only sounds a muffled automatic scatter tears through the silence. He writes about a night assault through the forest, the snow so deep it muffled sound completely, and the moment the American positions opened fire, as if they had decided before we came that they were going to stay. He writes, "What those men were, I cannot say in military terms. What they were, they were. The enemy came to the battle believing they were fighting a second-rate army. What they found instead challenged their deepest assumptions about what soldiers could choose to endure. 15,000 American men, most in their early 20s, from small towns and working-class families, had decided, collectively and individually, that this was the place. These were the people, and whatever came at them from the dark was going to have to deal with that decision." The Germans called it psychologische Immobilität. The Americans called it the 101st.